Okay, then in that case, then how do you compare the quality of life, the convenience, wages? How do you compare those to other European countries? Let's compare them, for example, to Germany, to the Scandinavian countries, to the UK. What comparisons can you draw?
Well, I would definitely say that the Western countries, like if you're looking to stay as close as possible to the American way of life, the ease and convenience and, you know, awesomeness of America in that sense, then I'd say go to the Western countries because they are so developed. They have a lot of years ahead of us, and when I say us, Poland here, in terms of their ability to be, you know, developed economically, socially, and things of the like. So they're ahead of us in that sense, and I guess the difference between America and those countries is not at all that much different. Like, for example, I always, when I fly from America to Poland, I have a layover in Amsterdam, and I love Amsterdam because of the fact, even from the airport, like it just doesn't feel that much different from America. There's the same types of restaurants, you'll find a lot of them, the same types of stores, like everyone speaks really great English over there. You know, even Dutch, like if you think about it too, like certain words and certain things, like not much different than American. Like the language group, I believe, is similar. Same thing with like German. Certain words are very similar. Just like everything's efficient. The processes over there, like, you know, quick. The English, like, it just reminds you so much of America. So like, I always like to laugh when people say, hey, I was in Europe, like I saw Europe. I'm like, oh, where'd you go? And they say like, I went to all these Western countries. I'm like, but did you see the real Europe? Because that's all the westernized Europe that is really nice, beautiful, convenient, great, like infrastructure is awesome, economies are great. Or like, you know, and I always laugh and I'm like, you've been to Europe for real if you've been east of where the Berlin Wall was, like, you know what I mean? Like, you've been on the other side of the Iron Curtain. That's why, you know, and I'm not demeaning people. Okay. But
that's an interesting term.
You know, and not everyone knows the Iron Curtain, so I like to say Berlin Wall for reference because most people know. But
oh, so that's what you were referring to as the Iron Curtain, right?
Yeah. So anything east of that.
Okay.
I mean, both are kind of used just to imply Eastern Europe that was once under Soviet control.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, Poland is slightly behind, and if we're gonna compare them to those countries.
Okay.
But it's catching up. Like even, I would say when I was here in like 2010, like vacationing, you know, things like that, I still thought of Poland as like super behind in a lot of aspects compared to America. But now I see that difference less and less. Like there's like my life hasn't changed much, like that I had to sacrifice so much from my American life to like come here. It's not like I'm living like in a rural area where there's nothing, no resources, no jobs, you know what I mean? Like I moved to another city. Like life is not that much different with regards to like quality of life. I think it all really depends too on like what you value, how you want to live. You know, I've noticed ever since I moved here that a lot of people have reached out to me saying like, hey, how do you like being here in Poland? And I'm like, I love it, you know, but I always caution them. I never tell them like, oh, it's amazing, come here, you're gonna get rich, you're gonna have all this. No, like I say that there are certain sacrifices with, you know, or certain things you have to pick and choose. And if you really are serious about life here, you know, then this is how I'm going to show you, like, this is what I'm going to tell you about it. And people, after I tell them, you know, the possible negatives that I've noticed, for example, coming from America, they're like, no, that's exactly what I want. I'm sick of America. I'm sick of the fast-paced. I'm sick of the, you know, working all the time, like, for nothing. Like, you know, they're like, no, that's something that I might want to change. Like, I'm seriously considering it. Not that I feel like I've inspired a movement, but, you know.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I just always like to think, I'm like, of course now people are like wanting to do the same thing. I'm like, cool. So, but I mean, if I have helped anyone try to see a different way of life, I hope, because there's a lot more than America. Like, and this is something I will say, growing up in America and like being an American, like you think the world revolves around you. Everything in the news is America, related to America. Everything is about American and this and that, you know, whereas everywhere else in the world, no one is as egocentric as America is. Like, you have your domestic news, you have your local news, but you also think about your place in the world and how it relates to other countries. And every day in the news here, you have stuff about America, you know, going on. like you or other countries, let's say, other than your own, or like, you know, the EU bloc, you hear about what else is going on in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
You have that in America too, but not on the same scale. Like everything's just like America, America, America. And like there's this phrase in
True.
Polish, it's called like pępkiem świata, like myślisz, że ktoś jest pępkiem świata, which basically
Okay.
means like you think the world revolves around you. So I would describe that saying as very accurate to America, because no one sees beyond America, if that makes sense. Whereas in Europe, I would say not even just Poland, like people are very much more so aware of what goes on in the governments and countries of other like places, you know what I mean? So that's a very, very big difference.
Yeah, when you're that close, when you're living in a country that is like surrounded by other countries, and you are constantly seeing people from, who knows, like in one day you could see people from 5 to 10 different countries, and you could have conversation with them. It takes you out of that isolation of, like, for example, in America, I mean, you're basically in the middle of you're in the middle of two oceans, and I feel like that's a negative in the minds of that's a negative for the American mind, where it's like you end up losing a lot of contact with people from these other nations, and also in the sense where, okay, so if you're in America and you meet an immigrant from another country, the thing is that you don't really get the real taste of, for example, being in Poland and meeting a German or like a Ukrainian or a Russian, because when you're in America and you're meeting immigrants, you're meeting people who want to really integrate into America.
Yeah.
So you're not getting,
yes.
you're not getting that feel of their past country, because if they really, this is controversial, but I kind of want to say, if they really loved their country, they would have never left. And when they're in America, they're not there to necessarily be the person from that last country. They're here to now be American and integrate.
Well, you will have certain types of people. I mean, I have met both in America.
Yeah.
There are certain people, let's say Polish people, who move to America. And then, you know, you hear them somewhere, or you can tell by the way they're speaking or by their name that they're clearly Polish.
Yeah.
And let's say they're, you know, clearly struggling with speaking English, or they're speaking English with an accent.
Yeah.
I will, for example, you know, sometimes I'll just talk to them in Polish.
Okay.
And they'll still continue to talk to me in English and struggle throughout it, even though I'm talking to them in Polish, which maybe, I guess, may be derogatory on my part. You know, I can't just assume that they're, you know, Polish, but no, at the same time, it's like, you know, and it's like a weird thing to me, like people, or I guess they'll continue to try to be, and this is the thing, they're speaking English because they want to be better, and like being American and English is better than, you know, speaking Polish to someone. I don't know. That's always kind of how I've seen it.
That's a lot. It happens so much I've seen that happen so much in the U.S. where people, they really want, they will speak really bad English, and they will push through with their bad English, even if you speak their language. And it's like they just want to be American so bad.
But you see, there's a difference then when, like, it's a redeeming quality when someone is actually trying their best to understand the system and the cultures of a place that they're moving to or trying to like assimilate into, right? But then there's a difference when someone's doing it just because, like, you know, in a way to make themselves better than someone else, or to make themselves seem like they're, you know, higher up, you know, in society than they actually are. But again, you know, to flip the coin here, there's also people who go to America, and especially in very super Polish strongholds like Chicago, let's say, they'll move there and they will never speak a lick of English. They will never even try to like obtain citizenship, even though they've been there for 30 years, let's say, legally even, you know, they won't like bother to try and know what's going on around them. Like, you know, there are certain people who live in America but watch the Polish news, know what's going on in Poland, but don't know what's going on around them, like in their own neighborhood where they've been living for the past 20 years. So you definitely have two types of people. I think balance is important, as with all things in life, but especially in that regard, you know.
No, it's true. So that though there are, I've seen both sides of the coin as well. So the thing I was going to, so getting back to being in Europe, you're right. Like that whole thing about how you get less of that egocentric feeling just because you could meet 5 to 10 different people from different countries in one day, and you know, they're not trying to be American out here, because we're so far away from America. Although I still do see that. I still see from time to time out here in Europe, I do see people wearing like t-shirts that have the American flag on it. I don't know if they're American, but I have a feeling some of them are not, you know. But who knows? Okay, so then now how do you compare Poland to the East? I don't know how much experience you have in the East.
Okay, so very important thing, especially here in Krakow.
Yeah.
You'll have a lot of people from Ukraine or Belarus. I mean, anywhere east. A lot of them actually come to Poland.
Yeah.
And because Poland is the closest place for them, the quality of life in Poland is 100 times better for them than it is in Ukraine or in Belarus. So if like the further east you go, I don't want to say the more it deteriorates. Sounds kind of bad, but it is true. You know, like the quality of life, the amount of money that you can make, just like the amount of opportunity, the more east you go is definitely less than what you have in Poland. And Poland, again, for so long has been associated with, you know, these countries from the Soviet bloc. But out of all of them, it's really come out the best. It's come out the most advanced, I would say, and the most the one with the most possibility for progress and more growth. You know, and again, I attribute that to the EU, to a lot of stuff, you know, because Ukraine does not belong to the European Union, neither does Belarus. Like Poland's kind of like that interesting center. It's literally the center of Europe, you know. A lot of people think it's super Eastern Europe, but I'm like, is it though? Like,
it doesn't feel like it.
Right,
Nah,
you know.
it doesn't feel like it.
But what's interesting, for example, is that I will say, like, if you go south, the Czech Republic, for example, I would say is more westernized. Like, it's definitely more Western. Like, and especially due to a lot of, like, let's say religious or like cultural differences, I would put the Czech Republic more in line with the Western countries.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, for example, then Slovakia, a little bit more group with Poland. I would group it, like, for different reasons, you know. And they used to be one country, which is crazy too. Think about that. So again, that might also be the reason, you know, behind that split that did occur. But yeah, going back to, you know, the root of your question is that the East, people come here to work. I've known a lot of people who, for example, you know, they'll come here and work seasonally, just like us Polish people, let's say, we go to Germany to work for the season because that it's better there. That's what Ukrainian people do with regards to coming here. Like, that's the equivalent.
Yeah.
Because it's harder to get to America or the Western countries, but it's slightly easier for them to get to Poland. Less
distance too. Not so far away. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, the quality of life in the East, I can definitely tell that that is definitely lower, for example, than in Poland, like Ukraine, like as you're talking Ukraine and Belarus. Yeah, the quality of life is just so different, and it seems like